I'm going to make a dish from my new fantastic book, One. Hi, I'm Anna, and we're going to do some cooking. We're going to cook a dish together from my new book, One. This is a true one-pot dish. It's my one-pot beetroot, thyme, and feta orzo. It's kind of got the really sort of pleasing bite of pasta and that sort of creamy comfort of risotto all in one. And it's the easiest thing to make. I know a lot of you still cook my one pot spaghetti with kale and tomatoes, and this is the same principle. You chuck it all in, put a lid on, and forget about it. It's true one pot cooking. So, like lots of the recipes in my new book, I've tried to make this recipe super simple so that you can make them easily on a weeknight, or you can throw them together for lunch. I mean, I think I'm quite lazy sometimes in the kitchen. So I love something that you can throw in one pot, only have one thing to wash up. It's kind of a win for everyone. I mean, I kind of feel slightly embarrassed calling this cooking because it's basically putting things in a pot and turning the heat on. But, you know, great. Just picking some time while I talk to you. I'm using beetroot here. Beetroot kind of splits opinion. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think one of the reasons some people hate it is because, you know, they are used to beetroots that have a really super earthy flavour. I think beetroots now are actually much sweeter. I think if you eat them in season, they're incredibly sweet, incredibly delicious. So if you really don't like beetroot, I'm not going to hold it against you. Maybe I will a little bit, but it's kind of the point of the recipe. But if you really don't like it, then, you know, you could use butternut squash here. You could use carrots. It won't be quite as rich and sweet, but it will still be delicious, and you can follow the same recipe. Just make sure you use exactly the same weight. Okay, so we can start putting things in our pan. The first thing is the orzo. It's this tiny little pasta that looks like a grain of rice. I always have this in my pantry because my son loves it. He loves pasta. All kids love pasta. But it's sort of pasta, but it feels like rice. It's kind of this sort of middle ground. You know, when you want something really comforting, I think orzo is one of my go-tos. So I've got about 300 grams in here, and that's just going to go straight into the pan. You need a pan with a lid here. That's really important. Next, our beetroot. I've grated it because no one wants to see me grating beetroot. There's 650 grams in here. I've actually peeled this because the outsides of these beetroots had quite thick skins. If you've got really young, thin-skinned beetroots, you don't even need to peel it. If you don't want to get red hands and you have a food processor, it's a great job for your food processor. So that's going to go in. Then I'll pick thyme leaves. That's just the equivalent of like a small bunch of thyme. And the garlic, that's like 3 reasonably finely chopped cloves. So the next thing is some olive oil. I'm measuring this out. Usually I wouldn't measure olive oil for my pasta, but because this is quite a kind of specific recipe, we want all the liquid to absorb into the pasta in a certain amount of time. I'm measuring it out, and we're going to use 2 tablespoons of olive oil. The next thing is some balsamic vinegar. It might feel weird to put vinegar into a pan of pasta. Trust me, it's not. If you're thinking about, you know, layering flavour here, we've got the sweet earthiness from the beetroot, we've got that kind of heady floral thing from the thyme, we've got that rich butteriness from the olive oil, we're going to have some acidity and freshness from the feta on top and some crunch from some nuts. So what we're missing is a bit of acidity, and that's what this balsamic vinegar is going to bring. So about a tablespoonful. And that's really going to mellow as it cooks. It's not going to taste sharp. It's just going to kind of fully round the flavour. And then got some stock. This is veg stock. I've made it myself. If you haven't made yours yourself, don't feel bad. It's okay. Use a stock cube. This is about 800 mils. In fact, I say it's about 800 mils. It's quite important that you measure it correctly here because we're cooking this pasta for a certain length of time and it needs a certain amount of liquid in order to be cooked in that time. So usually I'm pretty lax with weights and measures, but here I'd love you to measure it exactly. The last thing is just a good pinch of salt. I'm putting it on a medium-high heat. We want to just bring it up to the boil and put the lid on and cook it for 10 minutes. But we haven't got a lid. So I'm going to get a lid. Got a lid. So the lid's going on and I'm just going to bring it up to a simmer and cook it for 10 minutes. Before you do that, actually, you might want to just give it a quick mix to make sure the orzo and the beetroot are all mixed together. So you start the timer from when it's boiling. Depending on the size of your pan, it might take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to come up to the boil, but you want it 10 minutes from boiling. That's going to mean your orzo's cooked, the liquid's absorbed, and it's all perfect. So this has had 10 minutes and it's looking exactly how I want it to. So I'm going to turn it off. The pasta has kind of cooked. It's taken on some of those amazing juices from the beetroot. You can smell the garlic and the thyme, and it's kind of silky and, you know, like a delicious risotto. But, you know, everything just went in one pan and it cooked for 10 minutes. It's great. The pasta's al dente. It's super sweet. Might need a tiny bit more salt. So I'm going to add that. But this, you know, taste your food all the way through your cooking. Taste all the different elements. But this bit at the end here, tasting and adjusting the salt, the acid, the sweet, all of the things that, you know, make a brilliant sort of flavorful plate of food is a really, really important part of cooking. I mean, it sounds really obvious to say that, but I think it's the part of cooking that I see people often missing, you know, serving up the food, sitting at the table, and then, you know, thinking, oh, this hasn't got enough salt. And it's very hard then to reverse back from that. So I've got a nice bowl here. Let's bring this over. And, you know, as well as balancing this in the pan, I'm going to balance this with a few flavors once it's on the plate. You can see how kind of creamy and luscious this has gone. And that's from the beetroot, from the orzo, but also from that little bit of olive oil I added that's just given everything this brilliant glossiness. And you can see why I said it's halfway between a pasta and a risotto. I'm going to use a bit of feta cheese here. If you're vegan, there's some really great kind of vegan feta style cheeses around. You could also use goat's cheese. You could use a bit of Parmesan or pecorino here. I'm going to pop a little bit more thyme on. I just saved a tiny bit back. Might seem a bit of a wild card, but beetroot and orange are actually such a great combination. And this is just going to add a little bit of brightness, a little bit of kind of zingy acidity. Tiny bit of black pepper, and then a few almonds. That's just going to give a bit of a contrast here because all of the flavours we've got are quite soft at the moment. So the almonds are just going to add a little bit of crunch. So we've got, you know, the sweetness, the butteriness coming from this beetroot orzo. We've got the kind of acidity and freshness coming from the feta cheese. We've got some lovely heady citrus coming from the orange zest and some crunch from the almonds, and then a little bit of olive oil to finish it off. So that's my beetroot orzo with feta, thyme and orange. And it literally is a 10-minute dinner. 10 minutes in the pan and you've got this brilliant kind of lunch or dinner, I mean, or breakfast if that's your kind of thing. It's not mine. I'm going to give it a try. That's great. I eat that for dinner any night of the week.
If someone likes pasta, would you eat that?
Definitely not. Not in a million years.